boys? Welcome back to another Brookowski's YouTube video. Today we got our starts and sits for week 11 of fantasy football. And boys, before we get into it, we have a chalkboard with over 10,000 members. It's completely free to join. On there, we give out our full weekly rankings, QB, RB, wide receiver, and tight end. We got trade advice, waiver wire targets, such a great community over there. Go check it out. First link in the description. It's absolutely free. Our first start of the week is Cortland Sutton. This is obviously assuming Jerry Jeudy does not play. When Jerry Jeudy does play, Sutton has been awful this season. He had a 3-week stretch. I want to say he had under 6 points every single game. It was so bad. Last week, though, obviously, unfortunately, Jerry Jeudy did get an ankle injury. We are assuming, again, he doesn't play. And when he was out last week, Sutton had 11 targets. That is a great number. Again, assuming Jeudy is out, Sutton has upside this week. And our second start of the week is Brian Robinson. Brian Robinson was pretty solid last week. Had 26 carries against that tough Eagles defense. And this week, he has a super easy matchup. He goes against the Houston Texans, who are by far the worst team in the league against RBs in fantasy football. Last week, Saquon had over 30 carries, easily over 100 yards. He cooked them. I think 5 out of the 8 games, 5 out of the 9 games, something like that. Over half of the time, the RB1 or the RB2 is versing this Houston Texans defense. They are terrible. Robinson last week, like I said, 26 carries. Washington should be winning this game. They are favored by 3 points against the Texans. We like Brian Robinson. Again, Gibson is there to take touches from him, but B-Rob should be this first and mainly second down guy. Gets more carries than Gibson, and we like to start him in week 11. And our third start of the week is Tyler Higbee. Yes, the matchup is awful. It doesn't get worse than this. Versing the number 1 team against tight ends. But the main reason here is, unfortunately, Cooper Kupp is on IR, and somebody needs to step up. Last week, Higbee had 8 targets, 8 catches. I believe it was 73 yards. Had a pretty good day for fantasy for tight ends, and tight ends have been so bad this season. If you need an upside play, Higbee is a decent option. And our fourth start of the week is Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd the last 2 weeks hasn't been amazing, but hasn't been terrible. I think over 9 points and over 12 points. But last week, you can't blame them. They blew out the Carolina Panthers, and Joe Mixon had like 5 touchdowns. It was crazy. This week, the Bengals versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are number 31 against wide receivers. It's a great matchup. We love T. Higgins, love Tyler Boyd. Both these guys should have good weeks in week 11. And our defense of the week is the Patriots defense. They are the number 1 defense in fantasy right now, and they have a great matchup against the Jets. The Jets, I believe, are 14th against defenses. They played them only 2 or 3 weeks ago. They got 9 points, and that was in New York. This game is going to be in New England, so it's even more of an advantage for the Patriots. If you have the Patriots defense, absolutely have to start them. And our final start of the week, it's David Montgomery. We've been hammering the sit on Montgomery recently. He has scored under 10 points, under double digits in 4 of his last 5 weeks. Only 2 rushing touchdowns all year. He has looked terrible, but this week we like him as a start. Goes against the Falcons, who are pretty bad against RBs. They're terrible against wide receivers, but they're also bad against RBs. And yes, Fields is this, he's looking like a running back right now. Over 300 yards, or at least close to it. Around the 300-yard mark over the past 2 games rushing yards right now. It's been crazy, but defenses should adjust a little bit. David Montgomery is the clear RB1 now that Khalil Herbert is on IR. There's no really other RBs there to take from Montgomery. Should be the goal line back. We expect these touchdowns to come up a little bit. Good matchup. We would start Montgomery in week 11. And moving on to sits, our first sit of the week is Jamaal Williams. Jamaal Williams has a tough matchup against the Giants, who are 8th against running backs, and they did a pretty good job of shutting down Dameon Pierce last week. I believe he had around 12 points. And Jamaal Williams has had no PPR upside lately. In the last 2 weeks, 0 targets. You don't want to see that for fantasy. Again, Swift isn't playing a ton, but he is getting more of the receptions. Don't love Jamaal Williams as a pure rushing back against the Giants defense. And our second sit of the week is one of the biggest busts in fantasy football. We got Najee Harris. The Steelers last week won against the Saints 20-10, and Najee still only played 60% of the snaps. He did maybe get nicked up at the end of the game, but I don't think that did take him out of the game. Najee right now, Jalen Warren is getting a bigger role. Najee did have 20 attempts, but only 99 rushing yards. It's a good rushing yard stat. But what do you get for fantasy? 9.9 points. No receptions, no touchdowns. Only has 1 rushing touchdown all year. Goes against the Bengals. Last time he played him in week 1, did have 10.6 points. Pretty disappointing. And he had a receiving touchdown on like the 1 or 2 yard line. Take that play out, that was like 3 fantasy points. This Bengals defense, very good against the run. Najee has not been amazing all year, and we like to sit him in week 11. Our third sit of the week is Michael Pittman. This is obviously not a must sit by any means. This is just kind of a more of an temper expectations. Slay and Bradbury have just been so good this season. The Eagles are number 8 against wide receivers for fantasy. Yes, Matt Ryan does help Pittman, but just not sure it's enough to overcome these amazing corners. Again, it's not a must sit, it's just temper expectations. And our fourth sit of the week, it's Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott hasn't played in a bit. This is assuming he does play. Over the last 2 games he has played, though, averaging over 16 fantasy points. He has been pretty good, getting a lot of touchdowns. This matchup, though, we don't love it. We saw Zeke I think Zeke, if he does play, he might even be a little bit limited, not get as much snaps. And we saw last year, Zeke had a little injury, but he kept playing through it, and he just didn't do good for fantasy this week against the Vikings. Really tough against RBs. Tony Pollard could have a bit more of a role. Could be like a 50-50, maybe 55 Pollard, 45 Zeke. He almost needs a touchdown to save his fantasy week, and in a tough matchup against the Vikings, we do not love him this week.
And our last sit of the week is Amari Cooper. Another temper expectations. He's not a must sit, but if you have other receivers, honestly, I probably would sit him. He plays away versus the Bills. It's going to be in Detroit, but still an away game. And for whatever reason, Amari Cooper cannot play on the road. His best game all season is 10.4 points. Second best game on the road was last week, 6 points. It is so bad for whatever reason. He has been amazing at home, terrible away, and with him being on the road, don't love him this week.
Boys, thank you so much for watching the video. Again, check out our chalkboard, a huge community. We give out our full weekly rankings, so much league winning advice on there. First link in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.